always wanted to learn to play the third movement of Moonlight Sonata on the piano. But every time I want to do this, I end up thinking, I really don't have the time to do it right now. Our busy lives and 24/7 connected culture is blurring the line between life and work, promoting multitasking and never turning off. We set New Year resolutions, we start on a new personal project, only to see it fading out of our lives in a matter of weeks. This is because, just like computer networks, the flow of information into our brains and communications within our neural networks are consuming our bandwidth and energy. And with our bandwidth congested and our focus scattered, it really becomes challenging to focus on doing what genuinely makes us happy inside. So, it's important to take a step back and really reassess what's actually taking up our bandwidth. In this video, we're going to see if the same problems exist when computer networks are moving data around, and what inspirations we can take from it to manage our personal bandwidth and time. So, welcome to Simplicity, and let our brains make connections today. So what many of us would like to see in our lives is to be able to fit a range of activities in our daily schedules. For example, develop a new skill, pick up a new hobby or side project, while also growing in our careers. But this only becomes sustainable if we make sure we make time for these activities, and we see ourselves making progress in these by turning them into a habit. And finally, the time we devote for these is reasonable enough that we're not constantly thinking that we might be spending too much time on them and end up losing momentum in our careers. Or the other way around, we burn ourselves at work and end up thinking, what am I doing with my life? In computer networks, bandwidth is measured as the amount of data sent from one point to another in a specific amount of time. When you're browsing on the internet, scrolling through your social media, or asking Alexa to turn on your lights, you're sending and receiving data packets through your network. Congestion happens in networks when too many resources are sending too much data too fast for the network to handle. This causes the network buffer to be filled up, causing long queues in the buffer, packet loss, and response delays. Additive Increase, Multiplicative Decrease, or AIMD, is the de facto standard for managing and preventing network congestion. In this algorithm, packet transfer rates are continuously increased until the bandwidth congestion leads to a failed delivery, at which point the packet rate is immediately cut in half. If the network is still too congested, the rate is cut in half again and again, until the rate matches the network's available capacity given the traffic. The rate immediately starts to increase again until the congestion leads to another failure and the cycle repeats. This usually results in packet rates going up and down, just like the edge of a sawtooth. This way, the packet transfer rate stays near optimum no matter how many users are using the network, and new users can be added in and dropped out while the system quickly adapts to bandwidth changes. Using AIMD, the network operates in a fair, distributed, and efficient way. So every sender gets their fair share of resources, and all contributors can act independently, so there's no single authority that decides on what rate users should be operating on. How would you take this standard strategy and apply it to your bandwidth management? Here's my proposal. You can imagine your bandwidth being a part of a network. Whatever track of growth that you plan for yourself occupies a lane in this network. Ideally, you want to keep moving ahead in a multi-lane growth highway without much interference and delays in your progress. Say having to shut down your enthusiasm for learning a new language just because you're on a roll with your project at work or coursework. So step 1 is to find your mission. Pick 2 or 3 tracks and start with setting a learning cadence for each. The first track, say practicing guitar for 30 minutes once a week. The next one being an online course you study on the weekends for 3 hours, and the last one would be learning a language 10 minutes a day. It's important to start by setting relative priorities for these to be able to progress in them at a reasonable but varying pace. Otherwise, you'd be a paper vehicle trying to push everything forward at the same time, but extremely slowly. Next, get your hands dirty. I'd highly recommend using an online agile tool to track your progress and manage your projects. I personally find Jira super helpful and user-friendly, and there's a free version that you can use. You can make Kanban boards, define and manage tasks, and have a roadmap to track your progress over time. And I'll go over these features in a separate video. So step 3 is to field check and adjust your bandwidth. Set a cadence to get a feel for your bandwidth with all the activities going on. When you're planning your tracks, you can say, I'll stick to the schedule, but I'll check my bandwidth congestion in 2 weeks. And if after 2 weeks it gets too much, and you feel one of your tracks is taking up too much of your bandwidth, you can cut the frequency for that activity in half or decrease the intensity or duration by half. But you can keep increasing the bandwidth gradually, let's say 1 by 1, to get to a point where you see congestion again. For instance, practicing guitar for 30 minutes a week for 2 weeks. If you see it's doable and you can add more bandwidth, make it 45 minutes a week and keep adding 15 minutes to it until you reach 3 hours a week. And when you reach 3 hours a week and you feel, yeah, it's too much, cut it to an hour and a half a week. But keep adding 15 minutes again after 2 weeks until you find your workable schedule. And by doing this for the other 2 tracks as well and weighing everything at the same time, you can come up with a more distributed, fair, and efficient use of your bandwidth. On a side note, if you end up using the system, it's super important to set aside time to doing nothing or just to be bored. Otherwise, you may feel burned out after a while. And boredom can actually help you get more creative. What's something you've always wanted to learn but haven't had the time? Let me know in the comments. Also, let me know how it turns out if you try AIMD for your bandwidth management. Thanks for watching! Fun fact about AIMD. Now that moving toward a greener planet is finally becoming real with more electric cars, power management in city electrical grids will soon become really challenging. So AIMD is being explored as a tool for providing a more distributed form of energy for charging electric vehicles. If you'd like to learn more, check out the description below where I linked the paper. Okay, bye!